Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Wraith, and today I'm going to be doing a video on breaking down the unit types. Now, by what I mean by that is giving a rundown of all the different types of units you have in most armies and what they're good for, maybe what their weaknesses are, and how to use them and implement them into your games for competitive Middle-earth strategy battle game. Now, there are several different types of units, but I'm going to summarise them into 4 different unit types. And each has its own role and abilities, and of course, all of them have weaknesses. The best thing you need to do is know the difference beyond the obvious. Once you know each type of them and how to use them to great effect, your win-to-loss ratio will massively improve. Pretty much summed up. So, the types are as followed. There's infantry, so warriors, infantry. You've got cavalry, and I've put chariots in with them. I will cover chariots slightly differently. And then we've got monsters, war beasts, and we've got heroes. So I will quickly summarise on the different uses of each, and I'll go into more depth towards the back end of the video about how to use each of them, like more in depth. Or maybe that might take a different video. Who knows? We'll see how long this video goes. So, jumping in, we've got infantry. Infantry are most armies' bread and butter. They are the spine and the main body of most armies, and they are essential for scenarios that require you to pick up items and also to utilise things like spears and pikes, so you can get the greatest number of attacks in combat. Infantry are also very important when it comes to terrain, as they can travel through woods with much more ease than cavalry can, suffering only half move compared to the cavalry's loss of 3/4 of their movement. The last thing to consider is scaling cliffs, ladders, and making their way through buildings and ruins that monsters or mounted models perhaps cannot fit into. Infantry are very effective as an anvil unit that can be used to hold an area or hold the centre of your battle line, whilst your heavy hitters like heroes, cavalry, monsters are free to be the hammer and strike the flanks or even the rear of an enemy force. They are weak, however, to being charged by cavalry, as you will get knocked prone if you lose that fight, and then they get double attacks. It's not going to be good if you lose to a knight, let's say that. So pretty much they are your bread and butter. They are required in most lists. Infantry, most games win from boots on the ground. Infantry tend to be relatively the cheapest around compared to cavalry models. And yeah, they suffer movement because they're only 6 inches or less, depending on what race you are. But for the most part, they're the one that's going to get your break point up, which is very important. You don't want to be losing 5 models and breaking. On top of that, they are also helping you grab objectives with more bodies. Now we've got cavalry. Cavalry is a very strong unit choice, and if you have access to it in your faction, I would always recommend bringing even if it's only 3 or so. They excel at flanking enemy troops and killing them in combat on the charge, as I described above. Also, they can counter the enemy's cavalry charges by getting into combat with a charging enemy knight on your infantry and switching off their knock to the ground bonus, which is a massive deal, especially if it's a hero that has been charged by maybe a mounted hero and you chuck that one warg rider to save Gothmog who's on foot's life from being cut apart by King Elisar mounted on his horse. He's probably still going to die, but not as horrifically. The last greatest advantage of the cavalry is their speed. The ability to shoot out and grab objectives late game is key. I've used them to win me many games that require my force to hold objectives or even grab a centre objective early game so that my infantry has a chance to move up and support the cavalry, giving you the advantage, as from that point the enemy army has to push you off the objective rather than you having to push them off or fighting in the centre inch by inch trying to hold the objective. Being the defender is always preferable than being the attacker in my experience. It's a lot easier to hold somewhere than it is to push an attack. Obviously it depends on your force, but I find it's a lot easier to be the defender. Okay, because even if it's just one central objective in the centre of the battlefield that you have to hold until breaking, as long as you hold it and you break, you're probably still going to win the game. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Their biggest weakness is heavy shooting that can dismount your 7 to 10 point upgrade. Also, woodland terrain and walls being defended due to the fact that you lose your charge bonus if the enemy is in one of these positions, as well as the loss of movement if you're in the woods. And the last weakness is the points cost, as they make your army much smaller, as one cavalry model usually costs the same as 2 of your infantry. Now, one other way to run cavalry is to have something called skirmish cavalry. These are cavalry armed with bows, ranged weapons, and they're very effective at kiting the enemy and being a massive pain in the backside, because if it's a mainly infantry force that you're fighting against, they won't be able to catch you. They really won't. So you can keep peppering them all game long if you don't need to be grabbing objectives. Even if you need to grab objectives, you can probably run to most of the objectives and then just keep shooting at them. On top of that, if you target any of the range attacks that the enemy has, or if they have none, then they're pretty much screwed. So, yeah. Chariots are similar to cavalry in the sense that they've got the movement. They're a very good hammer unit for crashing into the flanks and side. They get impact hits, so you don't even need to kill things in combat, and you could potentially mow through most of the enemy's army if it's low defense or you roll really high. The downside to chariots, though, is they literally cannot go over walls at all. It completely blocks them. On top of that, their movement is very limited by their pivot system they have. So if you've got a lot of terrain on the table, like you should do in Middle-earth strategy battle game, it's going to be hard to use a chariot effectively. Unless you're using Candish chariots. Yeah, it's not probably worth it, I don't think. Iron Hill's chariot I've never found worth it from all the games playing against it. It's never really done much. So, yeah. But maybe I've just gotten lucky. Now, we have got monsters and war beasts. So, as you can imagine, there are lots of different types of monsters in the game. But in general, the key points they bring to your game is the ability to win fights and to kill enemy troops and cavalry. Having the ability to use brutal power attacks in combat, in my mind, is a game winner. Rend, that ignores your opponent's defense and attacks their strength, is great for dealing wounds to heavy infantry, cavalry and heroes. It's so strong at dealing with those pesky defense 9 dwarves, or even defense 8 King of the Deads, things like that. Because suddenly your strength 7 troll or whatever, or strength 7 eagle, it rends them, and you're now wounding them on 3s rather than 4s or 5s. Yeah, very effective at killing. Single models. Then we've got Hurl for causing chaos on the battlefield and guaranteeing the dismounting of models being hurled at or the hurled person. So anyone they hit will get dismounted, as well as the person that has just been yeeted across the battlefield. It also knocks everyone it hits prone, which you can imagine be quite advantageous if you do get priority next turn to jump on all those lovely juicy prone models. Yeah, I love Hurl. Then we've got Barge, which is basically the monster's equivalent of a heroic combat without having to kill. It's really effective at stopping people chucking maybe that one pesky Minas Tirith warrior onto your troll chieftain to just tie him up that turn. Yeah, you just barge him, get him out of the way, and charge something you want. Pretty simple. It hasn't got very long range, and it's random, but it's still effective. If you lose priority, they will send a low points troop into your monster if they pass the courage test. Some monsters are even available as mounts, like Fell Beasts for ring raids and Great Eagle for Radagast, I guess. They give these heroes a big boost in movement up to 12, as well as a boost in fight value most of the time. Now monsters, their weakness, barring the hero monsters, is their lack of might, literally. For the most of them, you'll need to roll high in a fight to get anything out of them, or they'll just do nothing in combat. It's very annoying because you are going to be fishing for 6s, pretty much. Yeah. Heroes can heroic strike to negate your fight value, and yeah, if you're trapped as well, because they've got bigger bases, so they're quite prone to being trapped, you're not going to have a good time. Magic is also a massive weakness to most monsters. Unless you have magic resistance, you've got no will to stop a transfix, which will just shut your 100+ point model down. Or they'll just be compelled to walk away. War beasts can be fantastic. Okay. Also, they can cost you the game. This is because of their stampede rule. So, for taking wounds, you must pass a courage test. On a failure, your opponent gets to move or control the beast. And this includes, yes, mowing down your own troops if they're too close. So it's a bit of a gamble. They are, however, great at trampling through the enemy's force, dealing high strength hits in the movement phase, giving your opponent no chance to fight back. So it's very good against high fight enemies like elves. They make a fantastic hammer unit to hit the flanks of your opponent's force to cause maximum damage, as well as being a good psychological tool, making your opponents spend lots of might to try their best to negate that horrific charge. Another weakness is how unreliable they are, as I said, but yeah, to get the best out of these guys, you must have priority to be able to charge or win the heroic move if you need to call one. B, you have to pass checks when you take wounds, otherwise you have to face the wrath of your own 200+ point unit. Actually wounding is number C when trampling. Too many times has my Grace Beast of Gorgoroth rolled 1s and 2s and stopping at the first model I have charged. But I would still consider one of these in a competitive game. If you have access to a great beast, yeah, that's not too bad, and I have seen these at events. A Mumuk is, in my opinion, way too big of a point sink to be competitive. It can be compelled away, it can be wounded and stampede, and it costs too many points. It's like 300 points basic. Yeah, it's terrifying. So, yeah, there we go. Now we've got heroes. Heroes are essential in this game, as they are required for most factions to lead a warband. So, you can take them to battle. There are so many different types of heroes that are different and have different rules. For now, I'll go over the universal points, however. Might. This is a massive resource in the game, and if you have it and can manage it, and keep some of it until the later stages of the game, you can control the flow of battle by calling things like heroic moves, heroic shoots, heroic combats. You can literally own the battlefield. You control everything. You control basically which heroes fight first. If you've got the might, you control who's going to move first, no matter what the priority role says, and you can shoot first if you really want to. So yeah, might is insane. It is a game winner. So get good at managing your might resource. Heroes can also be fantastic killing units if you have the right one. So Strider, Azog, Mahut King, etc, etc. There are loads of good killy heroes. They can chew through most warriors with relative ease and bring lots and lots of buffs to your army. So by buffs, I mean, so you've of course got King Elisar's banner effect, Boromir's Bannermere effect with +1 fight value, +1, dual rolls. You get to reroll your dual rolls. You've got fearless banners in the Rangers, which is on a hero as well. Of course, you've got the Nazgul, who have their -1 courage aura, which can help against troops if you've got terrifying troops. It can also make your opponent run away if they break. Very, very good. But we've also got captains, giving you ability to increase your movement by 50%. So you add 3 inches to your infantry or 5 inches to your cavalry's movement, and this is key for going for an envelopment tactic, so shooting around the sides of an opponent's battle line or shooting off to grab objectives. Casters bring magic, and some heroes even count as banners, as I said. Casters are very key for shutting down heroes and monsters, I find. They can be very competitive in the sense of like Blinding Light, where they can stop the shooting meta if you've got shooting meta in your area. Galadriel is just an absolute beast. She's very good at one-shotting my lovely ring wraiths. I hate her for it. Yeah, casters are very good. Gandalf can do protection of the Valor and stuff like that. There's loads of different spells out there and loads of different combinations. Even the Moria Goblin Black Shield Shaman is devastating if he gets his spell off, which is Shatter, because you can go up to Bannermere and go, you see that lovely shiny banner? Well, that's now just shattered. That is disgusting. You can shatter Andor, you can shatter Durin's axe, everything. It's devastating. I love it. So yeah. They are also usually the best fight value in your list. So paired up with a few warriors, you can have weight of attacks as well as fight value on your side. Their weakness is other heroes, however, who can counter cool heroics or are just better in a fight. Assassinating your heroes is what they're going to be trying to do. It's not great. So you've got to look out for things like Azog, who is very good at killing heroes. Lurtz is pretty fantastic at killing your captains now. So yeah. Magic is a very good way to switch off your heroes as well. But you do have a bit of defense in the form of will. So look out for those pesky spell slingers. No one is slinging spells. But that is basically everything summed up for the unit types. If you think I've missed anything, do let me know. But this was a quick, brief video on breaking down the unit types and what they're good at and what they're not so good at. If you like the video, do like the video because it really helps the channel out. And if you're feeling especially sent today, do consider subscribing. But even if you don't do either of those things, I still hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.